Snowflakes drifted down on the quiet streets of a small American town, blanketing it in white on Christmas Eve. The townsfolk bustled past, eager to escape the cold and gather around their holiday feasts. But outside the old brick library, a small boy sat alone on the icy steps, barefoot and shivering, clutching a battered copper box to his chest like it was life itself. Inside the library, Ethan Grady, the elderly librarian known for his quiet, solitary ways, happened to glance out the frosted window. Something in the boy's eyes, wide, frightened, but determined, stirred something deep inside him. Without hesitation, Ethan pushed open the heavy door, stepping into the snow. The boy flinched at first, shielding the box protectively. But Ethan's gentle voice softened the moment. "Come inside, son," he offered warmly. "You'll freeze out here." Hesitant, the boy finally allowed Ethan to lead him inside the old library, where a fire crackled in the stone hearth. Ethan handed him a mug of hot cocoa, watching as the boy's trembling fingers slowly warmed around it. Silence filled the room, broken only by the soft hum of the wind outside. Ethan didn't press him, simply sat nearby, respecting the boy's quiet. Finally, the boy spoke in a hushed voice, eyes never leaving the copper box in his lap. "I must protect this box," he whispered, clutching it tighter. "It's all I have." His words hung in the air, heavier than the snow falling outside. Ethan's heart ached at the sight, this mysterious child, alone in the world, bound to a strange old box. But even then, Ethan sensed this encounter wasn't chance. It was the beginning of something neither of them could yet understand, something that would change both their lives forever. The storm howled outside, rattling the old library's windows as snow piled high along the streets. Inside, the warm glow of the fire softened the room's shadows. Ethan sat near the boy, who was still clutching the copper box close to his chest. Ethan's voice was calm and kind as he asked, "That box, where did it come from?" The boy hesitated, his eyes darting nervously toward the door, as though afraid someone might be listening. He finally whispered, "My grandfather gave it to me before he passed. He said to never let it go, that it holds everything that matters." Ethan nodded gently, sensing the boy's fear. He didn't ask more. He simply offered a blanket and let the boy rest, knowing some secrets take time to surface. As the hours passed and the storm deepened, the boy fell into a deep sleep, curled beside the fire. Ethan watched over him, then his eyes drifted to the copper box, now resting quietly on the table. Curiosity stirred in him, but it wasn't greed, it was something else. Something familiar. Ethan leaned closer and noticed faint, worn engravings along the edges of the box. His heart skipped a beat. The symbol etched into the copper, an intertwined vine and key, was one he hadn't seen in years. It was the emblem tied to a decades-old mystery in the town, one whispered in hushed tones by old-timers, the tale of a lost fortune hidden during the Great Depression by a man falsely accused of theft, a man who had vanished without a trace. Ethan sat back, stunned, his mind racing. He realized, in that quiet moment, that this copper box was far more than it seemed, and that this boy was unknowingly holding the key to an untold story waiting to be unlocked. The morning sun rose over the town, its soft light glistening against the fresh snow. Ethan, holding the copper box carefully, made his way through the quiet streets toward the town square. He carried the weight of the mystery with him, his heart pounding with questions and a growing sense of urgency. At the town's small museum, Ethan met Mr. Caldwell, the elderly town historian. Together, they examined the box under the dusty light of old lamps. Mr. Caldwell's eyes widened as he traced the faded emblem. "I know this," he breathed. He retrieved an old, brittle ledger and flipped through the pages, finally stopping on a yellowed article from decades past. The headline read, "Factory Worker Accused of Theft, Town in Uproar." The article told the story of Thomas Merrick, a kind-hearted factory worker beloved by many, who had been accused of stealing company funds during the Great Depression. In a wave of panic and fear, the town had turned against him, driving him out. He always said he was innocent, Mr. Caldwell muttered, his voice tinged with regret. They never found the money. And he vanished, along with his family. Suddenly, Ethan's breath caught. He remembered the boy's words, his grandfather's warning to never let go of the box. In that moment, it became clear, the boy was Thomas Merrick's descendant. Unknowingly, he carried not only a treasure but also the weight of a family wronged and forgotten by the town. Word spread quickly through the streets. Soon, the townspeople gathered, reading the old news for themselves. Guilt washed over them as they realized how their ancestors had betrayed an innocent man, leaving generations to suffer for a crime that never existed. Silence filled the square, heavy with shame and the aching need to make things right. The old library, once quiet and forgotten, now brimmed with people. Townsfolk filled every corner, their faces somber as they gathered around Ethan and the boy seated near the fireplace. The copper box sat between them, its surface glinting softly in the firelight. Ethan rose, holding the box gently in his hands. His voice, though aged, rang with steady conviction. This boy's family suffered for decades because of a lie, he began, his eyes meeting those of the townspeople. Our town turned its back on a good man, blaming him for a crime he didn't commit. And this child has carried not just the weight of this copper box, but the burden of his family's pain. The room fell into a heavy silence, hearts heavy with regret. Ethan then looked to the boy. "May I?" he asked softly. The boy, eyes wide but trusting, nodded. With trembling hands, Ethan slowly opened the copper box. Gasps echoed through the room as its contents were revealed, old property deeds, untouched cash bonds, and dozens of letters, their ink faded but their words still clear. They were letters from Thomas Merrick himself, filled with messages of hope, honesty, and kindness, proof of his innocence, proof of his heart. Tears welled in many eyes as the townspeople read aloud passages from the letters, hearing for the first time the truth of the man they had wronged. One by one, voices rose in apology, in sorrow, and then in resolve. "We owe this family more than words," one elderly woman said, wiping her tears. Offers poured in, homes, warm meals, jobs, and friendship. The boy, once so alone, now stood surrounded by open arms. In that moment, the town reclaimed not just a lost treasure, but its compassion and its soul. Weeks passed, and the town, once weighed down by guilt, had transformed. In the heart of the newly restored park, children's laughter filled the air, mixing with the soft rustle of spring leaves. The boy, no longer the timid, shivering child from that snowy night, ran freely among his new friends, his face glowing with joy. Ethan sat nearby on a wooden bench beneath the shade of an old oak tree, watching with quiet pride. Around him, familiar faces now greeted him warmly, people who had once passed him by without a word now stopped to chat, offering smiles and kindness. In the center of the town library, the copper box sat on display behind glass, surrounded by photos and letters that told its story. It wasn't just a relic of a past mistake, it had become a symbol of truth, forgiveness, and the healing power of compassion. As the boy ran past, laughing and carefree, Ethan's eyes softened. He let out a small, contented sigh and whispered to himself, his voice carrying the weight of a man who had finally found peace. Sometimes, the greatest treasure isn't what's inside the box, but what it brings out in people's hearts. His words lingered in the air, as if the town itself had heard and embraced them. The camera slowly pulled back, capturing the park alive with hope and laughter, the boy's carefree spirit shining brightly as a testament to the town's redemption. And as the sun began to set, casting the scene in a warm, golden glow, everything faded out, leaving only the echoes of joy and the enduring reminder that kindness has the power to change everything.